What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the ZayMoolaSportsPodcast. I'm your host, Isaiah, and Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks appear to be heading their separate ways. And Shams Charania reported that Giannis is ready to find a new team ahead of the NBA trade deadline, and it has finally happened, y'all. Giannis Antetokounmpo has come to the realization that the Milwaukee Bucks are no longer championship contenders, and the writing has been on the wall about this since last year, because after Damian Lillard tore his Achilles in their first-round series against the Indiana Pacers, that effectively closed the Bucks' championship window. Let's be honest, even when he was playing, they still didn't have a great chance of winning the championship, but they had a slight chance of winning it because you had Dame and Giannis, two of the best players in the NBA, and they had some really solid role players like Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, and Gary Trent Jr. But once Dame tore his Achilles, the Bucks were never going to be championship contenders again with Giannis, because they were not going to be able to surround him with the necessary talent in order to compete for a championship. Because let's be honest, y'all, the Bucks don't have a lot of draft picks, and they don't have a lot of young assets that teams would covet in any potential trade or trades. And that's why it was devastating once Dame tore his Achilles, because they could have potentially traded him, for maybe a young point guard, y'all, so just some young players in general. But once he tore his Achilles, obviously, no team is going to want him. And the Bucks, what they do, y'all, they panic. So they end up stretching and waiving his contract in order to sign Myles Turner. Now, Myles Turner, he's a good player. I say, he's a pretty solid center in the NBA. But let's be honest, y'all, he's not a superstar player. He's not a game-changing player. And he was never going to elevate the Bucks to be, become a championship contenders. But again, y'all, they panic. Why? Because they were trying to make Giannis happy, and they were still trying to convince him that they could be championship contenders. And this is why, y'all, that, around this time last year at the trade deadline, they traded Chris Middleton away to bring in Kyle Kuzma. Now, all of us thought that was a really bad deal. Not because Kyle Kuzma is necessarily a bad player, although he's definitely not a great player, but because he was just not a good fit for this team, right? He's not that athletic. He's not a good defender. He's not a good shooter, y'all. And those are three things that the Bucks, really need. And they gave up a guy in Chris Middleton. Now, although he's older, he's still a good shooter. He's still a solid defender. And obviously, he understands the system very well, as he had been there for several years. But they panicked, y'all. They felt like, we need to get younger. We need to get better. So let's bring in Kyle Kuzma again, even though he was not a great fit for them. And so the Bucks, y'all, you just look at what they've done, over the past year. They've just really made a lot of panic moves to try to improve their roster, to think they're getting better, but they really are getting worse, y'all, because again, Kyle Kuzma, he's a worse player than Chris Middleton. Obviously, we know Myles Turner is a worse player than Damian Lillard, but they've done this to just try to keep Giannis happy, to try to convince him, hey, Giannis, we can still be championship contenders, y'all. And I'm going to be honest, I really think Giannis wanted to remain in Milwaukee his entire career, because, a couple of years ago, we heard him say that he wanted, he loved the city, he wanted to be loyal, he wanted to be one of those players that played his entire career with the same team, y'all, kind of similar to a Reggie Miller or a Dirk Nowitzki. But the problem is, y'all, the Milwaukee Bucks are no longer championship contenders. And when you look at Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's still one of the best players in the NBA. He's in the prime of his career at 31, and although he's won one championship, y'all, obviously he wants to win, 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 more championships. And that's what all the great players, all the legendary players want to do, y'all. When Michael Jordan won his first championship, he wasn't content with just winning one. When LeBron won his first championship, he wasn't content with just winning one, right? They want to win multiple championships and really, prove to people why they are the greatest players, in NBA history, because that's what people are going to hold against them, y'all. At the end of the day, if you're a great player, but you never won a championship, or you only won one championship, people are going to say, well, yeah, you were great, but you never won a championship. Or, yeah, you were great, you only won one championship, so how great are you? And so for Giannis, y'all, he understands that in order to really become one of the greatest players in NBA history, he's going to have to win multiple championships. And I think he finally realized that he no longer could do that in Milwaukee. Why, y'all? Because they just did not have the necessary resources to surround him with a championship caliber team. And when you look at teams that could potentially be interested in him, the first thing that stands out to me would be the Miami Heat, y'all, because they have a boatload of picks. And they also have some really good young players, particularly Tyler Hero, who has been an all-star player in the NBA before, and Khalil Ware, y'all, who is a rising star in the NBA. Now, I would be interested to see if the Miami Heat would be willing to part ways with Khalil Ware, because we know they are very high on him, y'all. I mean, last offseason, they would not include him in any trade package for Kevin Durant, right? That's why they ended up trading for KD, because they were not willing to part ways with Khalil Ware. So I'm interested to see if they'd be willing to part ways with him in a potential Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. But I think, y'all, for the Milwaukee Bucks, this would be a great deal for them, because, again, they could get either, a proven player in Tyler Hero, or a rising player in Khalil Ward, and they also could get a boatload of draft picks. And also, y'all, for Giannis, I think this would be a great fit for him because we know the Heat coach. I think he would be a great fit for what Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, and the entire Heat organization stands for and represents. And then I think he would be a great fit next to Bam Adebayo. The only problem is, y'all, I still don't know if the Heat would necessarily be championship contenders. They would definitely be a much better team because you have Giannis, Bam, Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, right, Drew Smith. They would still have Simone Fontecchio, so they would still have, some really good players surrounding Giannis and Bam. But I don't know if they would necessarily be championship contenders, but I think they would be a really good fit for Giannis. And who knows, maybe in the offseason they would be able to recruit some better talent to come and join Giannis and Bam and Norman Powell. I think another team, y'all, that stands out would be the New York Knicks. Now, for the Knicks, it's very tricky for them because obviously a couple years ago they made the infamous trade, trading away 5 first-round picks to acquire Mikal Bridges. And so they don't have a lot of assets, y'all, when it comes to the pick department, but they do have, some players I think the Bucks could be intrigued by. One being OG Anunoby, who's arguably the best 3-and-D player in the league. And then you have Miles, a.k.a. Deuce McBride, y'all, who's a very good 3-and-D player himself. And what do the Bucks need? They need some more athleticism, shooting, and defense on their team. The only problem is, y'all, I don't know if the Knicks should necessarily give up OG Anunoby because what do the Knicks need? They need defense, right? So I don't know if they should give up their best perimeter defender, even though Giannis is a superstar player. But, I just don't know if it makes a ton of sense for them to give up OG Anunoby considering that they really need defense. And also, y'all, I don't know where Karl Towns will even fit in terms of the equation with Giannis and Jalen Brunson because if they acquire Giannis, he and Jalen Brunson going to have the ball in their hands most of the time. And then what's Karl Towns going to do? Just be standing on the three-point line? So I don't think that would necessarily be the greatest of fit. But, yes, the Knicks would be championship contenders with Giannis because you would still have Jalen Brunson, obviously Giannis, Mikal Bridges, right, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson. So they would be championship contenders. I just kind of worry about the fit, really, when it comes to Karl Towns. And also, y'all, again, would the Knicks be willing or would it make a lot of sense for them to part ways with OG Anunoby considering he's their best defender and they need more defense on their team? But they would be, a great team if they were able to acquire Giannis and definitely be able to compete with the best teams in the NBA for a championship. And y'all, I think the third and final team that stands out to me, and they're probably like a sleeper team, they would be the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors have had a great season so far. They're one of the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference. And they have some assets, y'all, in terms of picks and young talent that the Bucks would really probably be interested in. You look at that young talent, they have like Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shead, Grady Dick, potentially even R.J. Barrett, y'all. And they have a lot of picks they can offer as well. So I think in terms of the best trade package the Bucks could get, it probably would be from the Toronto Raptors. Because again, y'all, the players I just listed, all of them are, young players that can really help the Bucks out tremendously. And then the Raptors also have a lot of picks that the Bucks would covet. And then, y'all, for Giannis, I think if Giannis was to go to the Raptors, man, they could be championship contenders because you have a strong big three of Brandon Ingram, and Scotty Barnes. You would still more than likely have Emmanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl as well. And I think, y'all, they could compete with the Knicks. And the Knicks, and the Cavs and, Sixers and Pistons in their Eastern Conference. I don't know if they can necessarily compete with the Spurs or Thunder or Rockets, but, man, I'm telling you, if Giannis goes to the Raptors, they would be a very good team because they've been playing, great basketball all season long. So just imagine if Giannis was to go there, y'all, they would be even better. Now, y'all probably think, well, Zay, there's one team you omitted, and that is the Golden State Warriors. And, y'all, I know so many people want Giannis to go to the Warriors, but I don't think that makes sense at all because, first off, the Warriors really don't have any young assets that I think the Bucks would necessarily be interested in. And then the best asset that they have outside of Steph Curry, y'all, would be Jimmy Butler, but he just tore his Achilles, right? And he's going to be 37 in September. So I don't know why the Bucks would want a almost 37-year-old coming off a major Achilles injury, y'all, when you would be giving up a 31-year-old player in Giannis who's in the prime of his career. Like, that just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And then also, y'all, I don't think he would be a great fit, or excuse me, I should say, I don't think Draymond would be a great fit because Giannis and Steph would have the ball in their hands most of the time. But what is Draymond's greatest strength offensively? It's his playmaking. So it just wouldn't make a ton of sense, y'all, from a fit perspective. And again, I just don't think the Warriors have the picks or, young assets that the Bucks would covet. So it's going to be very interesting to see, y'all, where Giannis goes. But no matter where he goes, he's going to continue to be the legendary player that he is, because he is truly one of the greatest players in NBA history. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, can't wait to see you go, my brother, and continue to ball out and go win yourself another championship. So there you have it, man. This is another episode of ZayMoolaSportsPodcast Sports Podcast. Remember, y'all, labs good messages. So what? Make sure you get your daily dose. Y'all know I'm an enemy. I love y'all. God bless. Peace.